Philadelphia recognizes pattern. When the calendar turns toward winter and the games start to weigh on the chest, certain conversations inevitably return to the table at the NovaCare complex. One of them sounds almost like heresy to anyone attached to the roster's sentimental value, but it's pure Howie Roseman pragmatism. How do you keep the offense sharp when a key piece is approaching the curve of age, contract, and scheme? For years, the Eagles' offense has learned to speak with the same voice when the ball goes over the middle. Firm roots, sure hands, honest blocking in short space, quick reading against zone. Dallas Goedert turned those small virtues into a respectable career. He went back to being an important piece this season, and, for many, signed one of his best campaigns in what hurts the opponent the most. 7 touchdown catches, a new personal best, with 36 receptions for 356 yards so far. That's not nothing. It's the kind of production that sustains drive, changes calls in the red zone, and makes play action easier. But the NFL is a league that does the math before it does the hugging. Goedert turns 31 in January and carries a contract that, this season, comes in around $10 million. There was preseason noise about a possible trade, talk that cooled when he agreed to a restructure. Even so, the arithmetic remains: age, cost, and horizon. And the numbers that support the concern don't hide. The 9.9 yards per reception average is the lowest of his career. Yards per game and per target are also on a recent downswing. He's still good. The chart, however, calls for caution. On the outside, where fans measure rumor with their own thermometer, another name started circulating because of a 2026 mock draft. In October, Mike Renner, CBS Sports, suggested that the Eagles could, and perhaps should, go tight end in the first round. Most recently, on Thursday, he reiterated the same projection. It's not just a random dart thrown in the air. Renner argues that even if Goedert eventually re-ups, Philadelphia uses 2 tight end formations a lot. It makes schematic and succession sense. The idea isn't to replace out of panic, it's to prepare the next layer while the present still produces. So the question isn't merely move on or keep the flag flying. It's which piece fits what the team needs when it wants to speed up the clock and impose physicality in January. Philadelphia's offense thrives when it can be 2 things at once: heavy enough to sell the run, fast enough to punish space. The second tight end, when well chosen, becomes the winch that pulls the defense into the box and at the same time slashes the flat with yards after the catch. It's a specific profile, hard to find wholesale. While the debates filled radio blogs and social threads, the field followed its liturgy. Goedert scoring in short zone, Jalen Hurts finding the sticks with quick throws, the run game gaining traction when the opposing defense tightens up, afraid of play action out of 12 personnel. Even so, there's a sense the team needs complementary explosiveness, someone who catches on the move and turns expected yards into real yards without requiring the perfect drawing on every snap. That's the point in the symphony where the rumor gained a first and last name: Kenyon Sadiq, University of Oregon. The reveal doesn't need a trumpet. It makes sense by fit. Renner described Sadiq as the perfect second tight end for Philadelphia: high-end explosiveness, ability to gain yards after the catch, and open field blocking. In other words, exactly what the scheme asks for when it wants to play with 2 TEs without telegraphing intent. Pound it from one side and hurt you with speed from the other. This college season, Sadiq stacked 30 receptions, 407 yards, and 6 touchdowns. For his career totals, 59 receptions, 739 yards, and 9 TDs in 37 games. It's not just counting. It's the type of usage that speaks to what the Eagles like to do. Versatile alignments, pre-snap motion, a real threat to the flat and the seam. If the plan is to think about 2026 with composure, Philadelphia has path. Free agency for a TE? Possible, but that would pretty much close the door on a Goedert return and would stiffen the cap in the short term. The draft? That allows something more delicate. Select the eventual replacement while keeping an open spot for the veteran if the market and the locker room call for one more transitional year. A first-round pick only moves to the top of the list if, between now and the spring of 2026, the rest of the roster sustains Super Bowl contender status with few glaring holes elsewhere. If the team stays strong outside, WR's sturdy inside offensive line, and the defense holds its identity. The most evident hole could, in fact, be at tight end. This isn't about declaring the end of a cycle. Goddard was taken 49th overall in 2018, has 3 seasons over 600 receiving yards, and one with 592, and across 102 NFL games has totaled 385 receptions, 4,441 yards, and 31 TDs. That's called track record. The draft, however, has always been a conversation about tomorrow, and Roseman, more than anyone, understands that succession is done before urgency hits. What Renner suggests isn't a hard cut, it's a ramp, a dynamic tight end who comes in as the tight end too, and gradually can take on more volume without the playbook losing layers. In the tactical film of the idea, everything breathes better. 12 personnel stops being a run-tell and becomes a riddle. Sadiq shifts to the wing, threatens the end with a crack block, and on the next play, leaks backside to become a 15-yard target in open space. He opens the window for RPOs with simple reads and hard-to-measure yards after the catch. Because it's not just the catch, it's what happens after the catch. At the same time, his willingness to block in space, something Oregon uses often, gives the offensive coordinator the freedom to call toss, counter, and pin pull without changing personnel and without losing the disguise. Of course, there's the financial and timing component. Goddard still produces, has locker room respect, and chemistry with the quarterback. The Eagles' decision can, and likely will, hinge on how 2025 finishes. If the team fights at the top, the holes become clearer by contrast. If other needs pop up, aging spots on the O-line, edge depth, slot route production, the first-round tight end might give way to another priority. Sadiq, in that scenario, remains a coherent option because he doesn't force a rupture or put immediate pressure on the cap. In the end, the debate the city has at the bar, in the stadium line, or on the timeline is the same one the front office projects onto the spreadsheet. What's the move that keeps the offense in its tone the longest? Recent history shows Philadelphia fares well when it combines conviction with timing. And the timing here seems to align 3 hands on the clock: Goddard's age and contract, the trend of keeping 12 personnel as a central weapon, and the apparent availability, at draft cost, of a tight end with the right toolbox to develop now. If Kenyon Sadiq is the name that goes on the board in April 2026, the discussion won't be about boldness, but about coherence. An offense that wants to be physical without being predictable needs a second tight end who doesn't give away the play's secret. A veteran who still produces but sees the explosion curve dip needs a partner who takes on more road without breaking the bridge. And a franchise that learned to plan while competing needs to accept that succession isn't ingratitude, it's ceiling maintenance. Philadelphia doesn't have a problem with hard decision. The fans have already seen the team say goodbye to beloved names to keep the pace, and then celebrate precisely because the pace didn't falter. If the spring of 2026 brings a first-round tight end, it won't be an impatient farewell wave. It'll be a wave of smart continuity. And when the ball flies over the middle again, with 2 tight ends in the huddle and the defensive coordinator biting on the bait, the city will recognize what it's seeing. An offense that, once again, chose to grow before it had to.